Hello friends, my name's the real Emile. Shall we play some of The Crew A Wild Run? I think we shall. So this is the expansion pack for The Crew, which was a game which came out in 2014 by Ivory Tower and Ubisoft. And the game, when it was first released, was people weren't particularly happy with it, or it disappointed quite a few people. While the map, which is the entirety of the USA, was fantastic, people didn't like the car physics, or the fact that the game felt a little bit soulless, the story wasn't great. So this game got a little bit of slack. One thing that was also of criticism was the graphics. Not many people particularly like the graphics. Now, the first thing you'll notice, if you've seen anything from the original Crew, and there is some stuff on this channel from that game, the first thing you'll notice at the moment is, oh my god, are you sure this is the Crew? And the answer is yes, yes it is. This game's had a graphical overhaul, and let's not beat around the bush. This game looks fantastic. I did absolutely god-awful on that speed run bit, apparently. Yeah, the game looks absolutely fantastic nowadays. It's also got weather now, which is also a bonus over the original Crew, which didn't. It had occasional like grey skies, and it did have a day and night cycle, but it didn't have weather. Yeah, this game is now very, 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 very pretty. Now, I must mention now, the Wild Run is a £25 expansion. I'm not too sure how much it is in America and, you know, other places in Europe and so on. You do get this graphical update for free, as well as the weather effects. You know, if you have the Crew, you will get a massive update, and that's sort of what this will do. It'll add the rain and day and, well, not day and night, and the new graphics and all sorts. So that's for if you have the original Crew. So what do you buy the Wild Run for? Well, there are many, many new things to do now, which I will get on to in a bit. Now, I did do a video on the Crew back in the day, which covered most of my thoughts. For those of you who don't know, just a quick, brief wrap-up. Basically, it's a driving game. You've got the entirety of the United States. You buy cars, you upgrade them. There's certain specs, so there's street spec and performance spec and so on and so forth, and you basically go through the game, get all the specs, and open up more and more of this fantastic map. But in the Wild Run, a few things have been added. The first one, which most people will probably deem the most important, is motorcycles. Now, I'm going to personal preference for motorcycles, which I don't particularly like, to a minimum. So yeah, they've added bikes to this game now. Now, Test Drive Unlimited 2 added bikes to the game. I'm fairly certain that's the only game I can actually remember that was sort of a free roam game with bikes and cars. Anyway, there's a couple of new bikes. There's that one, and there's that one, and there's that one. I know nothing about bikes. I have this one because I needed it for one of the challenges at the summit, which we'll get onto in a minute. As you can see, there are many, many new bikes to go and get. Also, there are some new cars. Now, the Subaru BRZ is a new car to the game. I haven't bought any of the other new cars yet, but you've got the BMW X6M, Rough RT35, SLR McLaren, Aston Martin Vanquish, which I dearly want, Lotus Exige, TVR Sagaris, and the Mazda RX-7. So, overall, as far as the cars added, pretty decent. The Crew's always been quite good with adding, you know, new cars and so on, but it's nice to have some more in them. I do wish we got them for free, like we have done with previous cars. If you was a season pass holder, you got the cars for free. I do wish that had happened this time around, because, to be honest with you, money in the Crew still isn't very easy to come by. And, you know, the last thing you want to do is sort of buy, you know, cars which you've already spent money on. Now, you can buy Crew credits, but the less we say about them, the better. Anyways, there's not only bikes, there is some new specs added to the game. So the first one is the drift spec, which is over here, apparently. Now, basically that makes the cars more slidey. I find, in my experience, the cars were relatively slidey on the crew anyways. Drift doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference to the cars, in my opinion. And still, the drifting is a bit wonky, which we'll get to in a minute. There is monster trucks, which are very cool to play around with. I have a monster truck, so I'll show you guys that off later on. It's very cool. And there's also drag spec. Unfortunately, I do not have a drag car at the moment. However, I can borrow them from the game, and they basically give you a rough idea of what's going on. Anyway, the key thing with the Wild Run is it adds these new events called summits, and I believe there's qualifying stages as well. Basically, how it works is roughly a week to a couple of days. They will host events. You go into these summits and you complete various events. At the end of the month, you all meet up at Bonneville, which is where we're at now. And this is sort of where you get the big prizes. So as you can see, there was the Monument Valley qualifier, more summit qualifiers, and then again Bonneville. I'm ranked 771 apparently in the world for this, which is pretty cool. Now each time you complete a summit, you get a reward. As you can see here, you can win a car, parts, you can win a starter kit for a monster truck, or you can win crew credits. I'm personally aiming for the car because it appears to be a one-off. So let's get into this. Let's start with the drag racing. Now, drag racing, for those of you who have never watched my content before, I love drag racing. Back in Need for Speed Underground 1, it was basically all I did in that game. I had a Honda Civic, and I just loved drag racing with it. So yeah, I was very happy to see drag racing in this game, and it actually works surprisingly well. We have a Nissan Skyline drag car. There's various cars you can turn into drag vehicles, the silliest one probably being a Ford Focus. So it kind of works similar to Need for Speed Pro Street. So at the start you have to warm up your tyres into the green zone, which I just missed out on. Basically stomp on the gas at the correct time, and then you've just got to match your shifts. There's only 4 gears in drag cars, and then you've also got a time when you're going to fire off your nitrous. You only get 1 nitrous go in a drag race because it doesn't recharge in time for you to have another one, and the car itself blows it all in one go, so that's something to bear in mind. Now, we're not going to get a decent drag time here. You do get 3 attempts at the drag runs, which is quite nice, because otherwise there would probably be some issues, because it's not easy drag racing. It's very much sort of a reactions test, almost, I guess. It's not so hard on the actual car. Now, it can be, and we will get into that in a minute. I'll explain some issues I do have with the drag racing, but overall it's more just sort of match, you know, make sure you just stick everything where it should be. There we go, perfect burn right there, and stomp on the gas. That was a decent start, not the best, but they were pretty good. Now, one thing I really don't like about drag racing, and this game does suffer from it, is when drag races have corners. Those of you who have watched Need for Speed Underground 2 will know I hate drag races that have corners. This drag track does have a corner. These cars aren't very easy to turn. You'll notice I'm doing like 300 miles an hour. That's because these cars are fantastically quick, but they do have understeer issues. And I do find if you get like absolutely everything perfect, your car will either sway from one side to the other, and it's very difficult to save a car when it's like that, because the car's so understeery, and if you try and move it around too much, you'll just end up spinning out or hitting an object. I do find that is a bit of an issue when it comes to the drag racing on this game, but other than that, it's pretty decent. It's old school Need for Speed style drag racing. Any of you who have played Need for Speed, which I'm sure many of you have, will know exactly what I'm on about when I say that. So yeah, it is very similar to that. We're actually going to save our nitrous here, I think, until I get around the corner. Now, one thing this game does do is, if you haven't got a car for a summit event, it will actually lend you one, like it's lending me this Nissan Skyline, because I don't have a drag car. Now, these cars aren't particularly competitive, over, say, someone who's actually bought their own drag car and done all the rest of it. Now, I personally think that's a great idea. Obviously you don't want to give people who are borrowing cars, you don't want to give them, what's the word, you don't want to make actually upgrading the cars into drag races and so on completely and utterly irrelevant. However, drag cars do cost a lot of money. The new specs in this game, this is another thing I really hate. I'll get onto what I don't like about this update in a minute. I'm sort of trying to balance it out at the moment, but I'll get onto my key issue with this update in a minute. Right, anyways, we have done that drag trial. I believe I got a bit higher ranked, but there you go. I'll next show you the monster trucks. Now, I've got a pretty decent run with the monster truck, so I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Now, I have actually got a monster truck. I've got a drift car as well, which I'll show you. My monster truck is interesting, to say the least. It's by far and away the most interesting vehicle. Yeah. It's a Fiat 500 because why not? So the monster trucks on this game handle pretty well. Basically, you've just got to collect these tokens and do various tricks and stuff. Now, one thing you can do is if you pull down on the analog stick, it will actually make the car do a backflip, which is very, very useful. Not on this... Oh, yeah, sometimes it'll do that because I pulled that at the wrong time. But basically, do as many sort of double barrel rolls and so on as you can. Now, it does mean that getting these coins, like these little tokens, they're not that crucial. If you can get the 5,000 platinum one, then yeah, sure. Ooh, oh, almost got up on that ridge there. Ooh, God, we're doing a wheelie. These aren't the easiest thing to control when they're in the air, let's be honest. But, yeah, unless you can get, like, the really big sort of tokens and so on, it's usually just sort of worth doing backflips and airtime and so on instead of going for, say, going out of your way to get the 500 tokens because you get 750 points for a backflip, so, I mean, you could just sit and do backflips all the time. I'm assuming they're going to tweak the monster truck game mode a little bit just to make it so it's a little bit more difficult. Basically, if you know the course and know when to sort of stunt at the right time, which I don't apparently, then you will do fairly decently at this. This is by far and away my favourite game type. Also, yeah, there's monster arenas in the game now, which is pretty cool. You can visit these in free roam as well, which is a really cool thing. Most games would sort of, just spawn this stuff on here just for this event, but the crew actually likes it, so you can go and do these whenever you want. You can take whatever sort of vehicle you want to these as well. If you want to run your Alfa Romeo circuit car around here and see how many backflips you can do with it, I mean, I guess you could do that. But yeah, the monster arena, it works pretty well. I do think it needs a bit of tweaking, just basically so backflips aren't the be-all and end-all as they are now. I'm going to try and get this 5,000 token. I know I said they're not particularly relevant, but the 5,000 ones are. Right, let's see if we can scoop this. Can we scoop it while we do a backflip more to a point? That was terrible, but sure. Hey, there we go, 5,000 points. That's sort of the goal of this, is to reach that 5,000 point one, I guess. As long as if you do a couple of runs of this, you'll get pretty good at it, because the map, it doesn't change. The tokens are where they are, and they are always there, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So yeah. Anyways, let's see what part we get. We got brakes. We got gold as well. I don't know if I beat my previous best. Brakes on a monster truck, not really needed, but sure, I'll take it. We dropped one position. I don't know if you actually drop a position or whether it just says that. Rerun an event. I'm not sure. on that one. So anyways, that's Monster Truck and Drag Racing. I will show you the Drift Racing next, and then we will go on to some motorbikes, and then we'll just finish up. So next up we have Drift Trials. Now, some games do drifting differently. If it's Need for Speed, what they usually do is they, say for the Need for Speed, they make the cars much more slidey. So you can slide them about easier, and that's a good system. Some other games go with keeping the cars sort of handling stock, not really helping you out much, and I find that system can be a bit infuriating. The crew does leave the handling the same, however, also this is my Nissan Skyline drag car, it's very pink, red, I don't know. What they do is they put the rain in, which is pretty decent, and yeah, the drifting, I thought it was going to be horrible, and you know, there are times when it doesn't work very well. I will say there's many games out there that you can go drifting on, and they probably do a better job of it than the crew does. However, it isn't terrible. It's reasonably good. I wish it wouldn't. I wish it was a little bit easier. I wish the game would perhaps help you out a little bit, but it doesn't work too badly. One issue, there we go, I've spun out, excellent. I did this event earlier, I did really good at it, so. One issue I do have with the drifting is basically you can just drift around these corners, however, it's actually quite advantageous to sort of keep drifting down the straight. And essentially, if you sort of just sway the car left to right, provided you're, you know, good enough not to spin it out, which, let's face it, I'm not, you can basically just get a ridiculous amount of points by just simply swaying the car from left to right. That can be a bit problematic again. This is another one like the Monster Arena. I think this perhaps needs a little bit of balancing. However, it certainly isn't bad. It certainly isn't the worst drift mode I've played in a game. It works fairly decently. Luckily there's no traffic on the roads, either when you're doing your drifting or in fact for any of these events, thank Christ, because it wouldn't end well if there was. But yeah, drifting's pretty decent, and I'm apparently not too bad at it. I think I got like 25,000 points on this previously. I'm spinning out all the time. I do apologise to both any GCR fans and anyone who actually likes drifting. I'm not great at it, but there you go. We've won a car part though, so I mean that's something. What did we get? Ooh, is that a gold level ECU? I think it is gold. Huh. So I might have actually done better than I did previously on this. I'm not sure. No, wait, no. I dropped. So I was 7,000 points behind, but I apparently only dropped one position. Sure, okay. Yeah, so these are sort of PvP events you're competing against. It works a lot better than I thought it would, I've got to admit that. But I do have another issue with it, which I will get into as soon as we load back up. Right. Now, this, you can criticise me for this if you want, and I'm completely fine with that. One thing I don't particularly like about these events is it makes you compete in both PvP and crew community events. You need a crew for both of these. And I guess the idea is, you know, you have to go in with a team of 4. However, my issue is because the crew itself wasn't particularly highly rated, there's not many people who are willing to take a gamble on a £25 expansion. You know, that's kind of a lot of money. That's half a game. So actually getting 4 people to go on this with you is a bit hard. I have one person on my friends list who has this game. However, they are French, and therefore there's a bit of a communication barrier there. PvP events, I've never liked PvP in the crew anyways. So that's what puts me off it personally. Anyways, with that said and out the way, let's go and have a look at the motorbikes, because I can imagine that's something many people are curious about. Again, as I said, me personally, I'm not a fan of motorbikes. I don't like them being in games with cars. I would rather car games be car games, but, you know, I guess the Crew's kind of... It's more of an arcadey game, so that's fine. This is my bike. I don't know what it's called. Now, one thing I have noticed with the bikes is they're very, very good at the slalom skills, as you would imagine, of course. That's sort of what a bike's built for. It's built for going in and out of traffic. So I was kind of concerned about them being perhaps a little bit overpowered when it comes... Oh, Christ. Apparently I've killed the Camaro, or I got killed on a Camaro, more like it. So... yeah, one thing I was concerned about is the bikes perhaps just overpowering the cars. This luckily doesn't happen because bikes suffer from a bit of an issue, and that is, as you can probably see, torrential understeer. I don't know, I don't, you know, I'm not an expert when it comes to motorcycles. I've never played I think this is like, this and Test Drive Unlimited 2 are the only games I've played with bikes in them, and I'm fairly certain this is the first game I've ever actually used a bike in. So I mean, I don't know if that's just a bike thing, them being incredibly understeery, but that's something you do get. This is a very, very low level bike. I don't think it's got any upgrades on it. It can still reach 200 miles an hour. Now, as usual with sort of like GTA and so on, it goes for that level of... It's similar to riding a bike on there. You know, you lean down and you gain more speed, and you can pull wheelies and stoppies. I don't know if you actually get any form of style points or anything of the similar for performing these sort of wheelies and so on. But they are something you can do. I don't know if they also improve your speed, or we are gonna... If I didn't have that collision with that Camaro, I would have done reasonably well on that, but there you go. The bikes also have customization, just worth pointing that out. The customization on the Crew's always been pretty good, and it is definitely good in the Wild Run. Apparently I've got a fuel injector. Excellent. Yeah, we're 2 seconds down on our previous time, but apparently I'm pretty decently ranked when it comes to cycles. So now I'm just going to mention a bit of a negative I have with this Wild Run expansion, and that is the price of things. Now, the Crew's always had this issue. The Crew, it works very much like, say, GTA Online and so on. Actually, there's a big jump. I don't think I'm going to do very well at it, but I may as well show you this as well. There's a couple of new skill modes. They've sort of mixed around some of the old ones. In this one, you basically ramp from one side of the Grand Canyon to the other. Usually, you'd use a drag car for this. I don't have a drag car, so I'm having to use a motorcycle. I tried this in an alpha the other day and it went horribly wrong, and it's going to go horribly wrong again. There we go, dead. So there you go. Yeah, anyways, my issue is sort of the price of everything in the Crew anyway was insane. It's like 190,000 bank for the BRZ. And the Crew makes it very hard to gain money. As you saw when I completed that bike race, I only gained about 3,600 bank, which isn't a lot. You know, 190,000 credit car, you know, that's so much bank. Now, one thing you can do to gain money is send people on missions. This is what I usually find to work the best. Now, of course, you need to have completed the campaign for that, but basically, I'll quickly show you here. Basically, I can send friends to go and do some of these faction missions, which apparently aren't showing up. Where is faction missions? Faction and PvP. So you can send friends on these missions, see the results, and you get money this way. However, it's very much like a free-to-play game, this. You basically send the people on the challenge, and then they don't come back for 12 hours. So actually gaining money quickly is a bit of an issue, and I personally don't like it. I think everything in this expansion should be given to people for free. Perhaps, you know, obviously, you know, you price some stuff, say the specs. I'm fine with that. You know, give us the cars for free, price the specs. The issue I have is the specs themselves. The cheapest one is 400,000 credits, which is more than most of the vehicles in the base game, which is ridiculous. And it's sort of to get you to buy the crew credits, which is a system I've never really agreed with. So, yeah, that's the thing that really lets this expansion down for me, is just the absolute cost of everything. I get they want you to play the game, which is fair enough. However, you don't want to make playing the game a chore. So with that said, one last thing I wanted to speak about, there is now these things called free drive challenges, which basically you can, basically hit down whenever you want, and the game will, you can go and do certain challenges. Like Game Ash used to do, near miss a few cars or so on and so forth. It can be fun. It does get pretty repetitive after a while though, so yeah, not really worth mentioning. And I think that's it. That's all I've got to say for the Crew Wild Run. So, do I recommend the Wild Run? It's a difficult one. It's a very, very good expansion. If it didn't have the issue where everything costs such a ridiculous amount of money to the point where, most of this stuff you might never even get to play around with. Drag cars, I haven't even had a chance to play around with my own drag car yet, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah, it's a tough one to recommend overall. However, if you can find it on offer, then I would definitely recommend giving it a go. And I stand by the original Crew game. I've always thought it was a pretty decent game. And even with the overhauled graphics and stuff, it definitely means the Crew is worth a revisit, if nothing else, if you haven't picked it up in a while. But anyway, friends, that is going to do me for today. I want to thank you all very much for watching. My name's been The Real Emile. Until next time, farewell.